Follow up now on a story we've been following. American pastor Andrew Brunson, who's on trial in Turkey facing charges that he's linked to a group accused of orchestrating a failed 2016 military coup. Brunson getting support from President Trump, who's called for his release, and Sam Brownback, the newly appointed ambassador at large for international religious freedom, who traveled to Turkey last week to plead his case.
The administration is deeply concerned about this case. We completely believe factually he is innocent. Andrew Brunson is innocent.
Now, two lawmakers from across the aisle are teaming up to call on the Trump administration to take a tougher stance against Turkey and to impose sanctions. Jeanne Shaheen is a Democratic senator from New Hampshire, and James Lankford is a Republican senator from Oklahoma. Both of them sit together on key Senate panel that handles foreign appropriations. Great to have both of you in tonight.
Thank you.
This is a story our viewers are familiar with. We have been following this. You all have sent out a statement in this call for sanctions now saying this. Turkish officials who participate in the detainment of any innocent American citizen should face international consequences. And the actions against Pastor Brunson in particular qualify as hostage taking. Senator Shaheen, those are tough words.
Well, they are, but that accurately reflects what's going on in Turkey. Pastor Brunson is being held hostage, and I think it goes right all the way to the top to Erdogan, President Erdogan. He's the one responsible, and these are totally made-up charges. They don't even connect Pastor Brunson with his church. They've called him a Mormon and don't seem to know who he represents. This is someone who's been in Turkey for 23 years, who at his trial, when he was asked about the charges, said, "I love Turkey. I would never do anything against the Turkish people." So this is not fair, and we need to make sure that there's some heat brought on Turkey for what they're doing.
And so this is obviously a bipartisan effort. I know 66 senators have signed on to another letter that's been sent to President Erdogan, specifically calling for Brunson's release. Tell me about the sanctions package that you all are putting together.
So we're actually putting sanctions directly on those individuals. So this would be the judges. This would be the city officials. This is targeting those individuals that are actually doing the hostage taking and actually facilitating him being held. This is a NATO ally. This is Turkey. This is who has been an ally with the United States for a very long time. We've had a great partnership with fighting against terrorism. But in the last 3 years, Turkey has made a really dramatic shift from who they have been in our partnership, and they seem to be shifting away from both Western values and ideas and rule of law and all those things that have bound us together to be able to become something we really don't recognize. So we'd love to be able to restore this relationship with Turkey, but we didn't move. They have moved, and we'd like to be able to figure out how to be able to patch us back together again. But you can't just take an American randomly hostage and to be able to hold them and say, I'm going to try to get something from them. Quite frankly, I would not, as an American business person right now, ever extend business into Turkey, and I'd be very attentive if you own a business to doing business in Turkey or traveling in Turkey right now, because we have an American that's been held there for a year and a half without charges for most of that time period, and now the charges just that are invented now. So people need to be cautious trying to travel to Turkey right now. It's a very different day.
Well, and it sounds like that President Erdogan is trying to make a deal or make a trade. He's referencing this exiled cleric that is here in Pennsylvania, saying he's attached to the 2016 coup. Now, this cleric has lived in the U.S. since 1999. He's denied all the connections. So here's what President Erdogan has to say about this. He says the U.S. is behind Gulen, this exiled cleric. If you want Brunson, look at the steps you have taken in the past. Why don't you deport this man in accordance with the extradition treaty? Senator Shaheen, it sounds like he wants to make a deal.
Well, that's what he's talking about. But the fact is, we do have an extradition treaty with Turkey, but they have to present evidence. And so far, they haven't presented any evidence that shows that the cleric, Mr. Gulen, has direct ties to the coup that happened in Turkey. There are a number of his followers who have been put in jail and who may have ties to that coup attempt, but there's no ties with Pastor Brunson. And one of the things we don't do with anybody is hold hostage people who are innocent and say we expect a trade for us holding this innocent person. So this is definitely not what our allies should do. And this is Turkey, where they did have they have had a democratic country in the past. They have had rule of law, but it's very clear that that's beginning to change now.
Well, I know that Senator Tillis was one of the key movers on here. Brunson was a constituent of his, and he has gone there. He said he thought it was important for him to see in person that there are U.S. senators who are working on this case, to see him face to face, to say no one is forgetting about you. You both have mentioned Turkey is an ally. They're a NATO ally. So how do we mend this relationship now?
Well, there has to be some clear steps that Turkey's going to have to take. And clearly one of those steps needs to be to release an American that you're just holding to try to use as leverage for who knows what. We have to be able to work out our relationships with how we're dealing with terrorism. Turkey has a very unique position in the world where they have Syria and they have Iraq and they're bordered by Iran. They have a lot of threats that are around them, both with Kurdish terrorists that are there. Some of those same Kurds we're working with to be able to clear ISIS. Some of those same Kurds they're afraid are also being able to come and attack them as well. So I understand some of the dynamics that Turkey has. But Turkey can't just start imprisoning people. They have tens of thousands of people with no charges they've just locked up. Journalists, educators, judges, all these individuals they've just locked up and they're just going to hold. They continue to extend their emergency powers. They're shifting away from being a place where they have rule of law. So we want to be able to work out differences that we may have an opinion on issues, but we'd love to be able to see Turkey acting like Turkey again, quite frankly, who they were 3, 4, 5 years ago.
To this sanctions package, how hopeful are both of you that it will make it through the legislative process and ultimately be signed into law?
Well, we're just at the start of that process, but as we saw from the letter, we had 66 senators sign on, a very strong bipartisan showing. We think it's very important to send a strong message to Turkey about what our concerns are with respect to what they're doing. And as James said, this is a NATO ally. We're supposed to be working together on threats against our countries, and we need to let them know that their behavior is not acceptable.
Well, and when there is an American in peril overseas, it is great to see bipartisan action on this. Please keep us updated as this proceeds.
Yeah, continue to pray for Dr. Brunson and his family. These are difficult days for them. We have not forgotten, though, and we'll continue to be able to work to get him out.
And we will continue to cover the story. Thank you both for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Great to have you.